Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K Facebook Live, and today I'm going to show you how I made a card with the Regal Reindeer stamp set bundle, which is one of the bundles from the current July to December 2022 mini catalog from Stampin' Up. So it's one of those really good bundles that, I don't know, it's kind of probably isn't showcased particularly well in the catalog. There are only a couple samples with it, but I sort of saw a sample in the catalog and was a little bit inspired by it for my card, and so I thought I'd show you how I made this. So this is what we'll be making today on the video. And again, it's just a little blended background. Just use the blending brushes on that. Did a little stamping, a little heat embossing, and the heat embossing did get a little messy. I'm not going to lie. I try not to make things look too crazy when I'm heat embossing, but they kind of did get a little messy, but I just figured it looked a little more snowstorm-ish. That's my theory, and I'm going with it on the background of it. So hey, Pam, thanks for hopping in today. I appreciate you being here. And so this is what we're making today. So let's start with the stamp set. This is it. Again, it's called Regal Reindeer, and it's got, you know, some really good images in it. Images that are good if you want to just stamp the outlines, you could do that. If you like to color, you can stamp in color. Love the sentiments in here, the mixed fonts. There's a little bunny, the reindeer, and the tree. Actually, I loved the trees, and that's really all I use. Well, the sentiments, obviously, I used from the stamp set, but I really only use the trees for this card. Hey, Patricia. So this is the stamp set, and then there are coordinating dies, which y'all know that I love dies. So there are dies that match both of the reindeer images as well as the tree, the little kid, child, I don't know if it's a girl or boy, child, we'll just go with that, and then the bunny. And then there are also some just general images, like this is a reindeer, just it'll cut and emboss. There's a little scarf here if you wanted to put it on. I think it fits on the kid. And maybe, I don't know if it would fit on the reindeer. Probably look weird on the reindeer. So, yeah, it'd be too small. So I think you can do that on the little child. There's a little fox outline. That looks like, I don't know, a block of snow, block of ice, whatever. A little harness for the reindeer. These are some kind of snow hill look die cuts that you can use. So little ornaments, all sorts of good things in this die set. So again, it's a great bundle. It's in the mini catalog. If you haven't seen it, go take a peek at it. So definitely a good one. All right, let me set that aside. And hey, Barbara and Jeannie, thanks for joining today. One other die set that I used was the Stylish Shapes dies, and I actually used the third largest of the circle, third smallest. I don't know, it's the smaller half of the middle circle. We'll just go with that, whatever that means for you. But just use the Stylish Shapes dies to die cut the sentiment on there. So I'm going to set those aside and then talk about a couple of things going on with Stampin' Up right now, and then we'll get moving on the card. All right, perfect partners. Where's my second half of this? Oh, goodness. All right. Stampin' Up has some new die sets that they have come out with just for the month of September that coordinate with some stamp sets in the current annual and mini catalog. So these are some great bundles. You can buy them as a bundle and save 10%, or you can just get the dies if you only want the dies, if you already have the stamp sets, or you can just get the stamp sets, but nobody wants that. You just get the dies. Get the bundle, you'll be happy. All right. So again, these are only for the month of September while supplies last. So I would say get on ordering them soon so that you don't miss out on any of these cute little die sets. Next up, Stampin' Up is doing some weekly deals for the month of September only. For the 4 weeks of September, they are going to be doing new weekly deals from the 1st to the 28th. So tomorrow, if you go take a peek, it's kind of tomorrow afternoon-ish. I don't know exactly what time they go live. You actually will have an opportunity to see this week's, the current weekly deals, as well as next week's weekly deals, and have a chance to purchase both of them at the same time. So there's a little bit of an overlap. This is the final week of deals that'll be coming out tomorrow. So they'll be around for one more week and a day after tomorrow. So the 28th is when they end, whatever day that is. So make sure you're getting out, peeking out the weekly deals and picking anything up that's on sale. And there have been some good things that have been on sale too. All right, last thing is World Card Making Day. Our team is doing an event again out on Facebook. It will be, we're going to be setting up, well, I'm going to be setting up a Facebook page here within the next week or so. It's not done yet, so don't go looking for it. You won't find it. But I will be setting up a Facebook page for our event. We're going to have team members go live once an hour from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. Eastern time, so you have to translate that out into your time zone. Just going to be going live, presenting some cards. The videos and the recordings will be around kind of for as long as Facebook will let them stay. So if you're not able to actually attend on the 1st of October, you can certainly hop into the group and take a peek at the videos and watch our card making presentations. So it's a lot of fun. We've done it the last couple of years and had a really good time doing it. We do some little giveaways and fun stuff like that. So definitely plan to join us. It'll be a good time. And then Stampin' Up! Also has World Card Making Day event happening, and we kind of have our event planned around it. Theirs is going to be going live from 4 to 7 Eastern time. They're going to do 3 projects, which is 2 to 5, I think, Mountain Time. I don't know. I'm not very good at calculating that out, and I always get it wrong. So, Stampin' Up! Does have an event that they are going to be hosting as well, and they're going to be using these particular bundles. This is a new one called Warm Welcome from the upcoming January to June 2023 catalog, which is kind of a nice, this is an early release that you can only get through October 1st. And then Cottage Rose and Cottage Wreaths are both current bundles that are available to purchase. This one is in the annual catalog, this one is in the mini catalog. So they're going to be creating projects with these 3 bundles. I know some of the team members that are going to be creating projects are also planning to use these same bundles. So you'll hopefully will come home with, or go home with lots of ideas, or be at your place with lots of ideas, I guess, since you'll probably be at home. But you'll be able to pick up lots of ideas for using these beautiful die sets and stamp sets. The nice little bonus that Stampin' Up! Is doing is if you order any of these bundles, if you don't have them yet, order one of the bundles by October 1st is what I'm trying to say. And you get a free pack of iridescent pearl basic jewels with the bundle. So that's a nice little bonus that Stampin' Up! Is doing. So again, let me know if you have questions about that. And we will be posting it all over the place, blogs, newsletters, everywhere. We'll be posting it all over once the Facebook page is live. So like I said, it's not yet, so don't go looking because you won't find it. So, all right, let's get going on doing a little bit of stamping here. So I'm going to start with Tahitian Tide ink. And I've got my blending brush, and I actually grabbed a piece of cardstock, typing paper, which I don't normally do that because I use my grid paper for this type of thing. But I was worried with the dark colors in the blues, somehow those end up like getting all over me and all over the papers, and then they're all over my white cardstock, and I don't want them to be. So I grabbed a piece of typing paper, and I'm actually going to do the blending on the typing paper in hopes that I contain my mess. Hopefully won't end up with it all over absolutely everywhere, although I probably still will. So, hey, Jackie and Karen, thanks for joining. So when I use the blending brushes, I usually, rub them across the ink pad and then go over to my scrap paper and rub them a little bit, just so that hopefully I can avoid having any kind of dark globs of ink when I first put the blending brush down on the paper. I'm starting again with Tahitian Tide, sort of in the middle of the card. As you can probably see, that's what I use. That's underneath the trees. So I kind of wanted to look at a little bit like it's, I don't know, lighter, glowing, whatever, under the trees. So I'm going to try not to get too heavy-handed with my Tahitian Tide. However, things happen sometimes. But I'll try not to go too crazy and put too much ink on it. The vast majority of our time that we will be spending with me today is just going to be spent probably listening to me yak and carry on as I blend the inks, because that's the part it's not difficult. It just takes an extra minute here because I don't want to end up with any globs of ink. So I'm trying to go lighter is better. And that's what I find works for me when I'm doing the ink blending in particular, is that if I just start and kind of put layer upon layer upon layer, I do better than if I try to make it really dark initially, and then I end up with too much ink, and then I'm not happy with that look either. All right, let me grab, when I was making this, what I kept doing was kind of grabbing the die and sort of seeing what was peeking out around the die. So it looks like I may need to go just a little bit wider on the inking here. So I'm just going to go on again with the Tahitian Tide and not worry so much about the center part because again, that's going to be hidden under the tree, but I want to make sure that I've got ink around the edges here. Close that up. And then the next color that I used was Orchid Oasis. So I'm going to grab another blending brush and Orchid Oasis ink. And again, it's the same process. Just going to do a little rub against or over the ink pad, a little bit on my scrap paper, and hopefully you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the globs. So here there's kind of like, you get little globs of ink if you don't blend it a little bit before you go straight to your project. So what I'm trying to avoid is getting those globs of ink on my project. So I prefer that they be on the scrap paper and not necessarily on my finished project. Although sometimes I do get little globs here and there, and I just keep blending until I either get the ink to go away or just make it dark enough that the glob doesn't show. And you'll also note that I'm not going all the way down to the bottom with the inking on this either, because nobody's going to see it. So again, if you want to go all the way down to the bottom, you certainly can, but we're going to be covering up with a couple of layers of snow, little die cut snow pieces. So I didn't worry too much about going all the way down and covering the whole bottom of the little panel here. I just want to make sure that I'm getting it inked well enough along the top. And I obviously don't want to have like a harsh line there because if for some reason I didn't measure correctly and ended up having my snow die cuts be a little bit shorter, I just want to make sure that I'm covered and don't end up with a strange looking, I don't know where it stops, a stop line, I guess, whatever you want to say. So just doing a little bit of blending again, adding a little more Orchid Oasis as we go here. And kind of doing a circular motion all the way around the edge of the card, front, I guess. All right, so I think we've got that one down. And I may come back in after I put on the Starry Sky and may come back with a little more Orchid Oasis to blend them together, but we shall see. So the next ink color I'm using is Starry Sky, and again, just going to do that same process where I'm going to take the blending brush, pick up some ink from the ink pad, do a little blending or a little swirling on the scrap paper, and then come over to my project. So there I kind of got a little bit of a glob of ink, which I don't necessarily love, but I'll just keep blending and adding ink to it. I want it to be fairly dark along the edges, so that's not necessarily a huge deal that I got a little glob of ink over there, but I should be able to blend that in without too much trouble. So, hey Carol, thanks for joining. You joined just for the boring part, listening to me I continue to talk and, as I'm blending. So, all right. So again, if you missed the beginning, which I see Carol's just hopping in, the colors I've used so far is Tahitian Tide in the very center, and then a little bit of Orchid Oasis around that, and I'm using Starry Sky as my final color here, and kind of blending the inks together to make it a little bit, like I said, darker along the edges, lighter in the middle was kind of the look I was going for. I wanted it to sort of look like a night sky, but not be super dark, black night sky. I don't know, maybe the sun is setting kind of sky is what I was going for. All right, I'm gonna add maybe another layer or two of Starry Sky ink here, and we'll call it good. I should bring my original card over and kind of compare notes a little bit and see how I'm doing on the inking. I don't know, I think we're actually getting it fairly close. So maybe another swipe or two with the Starry Sky, and I think we might be good to go. So, all right. And the other thing that I can do is come back in again with the Orchid Oasis, since that's kind of the medium color, and go over these areas a little bit to kind of help to blend maybe a little bit more, so that, again, I don't feel like it's a real harsh contrast, but it'll just kind of give it a little bit more of, whoop, there I bent it. That is what I didn't want to do, but we're good. We're good. The snow will cover it up if I end up with any creases in the paper. All right. There we go. Then I see a little spot up here that looks a little light yet. All right, I think we're gonna call that good for the background. So again, wanted it to be a little lighter in the center so that it kind of highlighted the tree that I'm gonna be putting in there, a little darker around the edges. And then I'm gonna take this and set it aside so that hopefully I don't have too much blue ink. Sometimes, I don't know, the darker colors and somehow I end up with them. I look down, I'm like, how did I get ink all over everything? But I somehow did it. So, all right. Hey Karen, no problem at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to grab my embossing buddy, And I have got that, and I'm just going to do kind of generously run it over my inked image. The reason I'm doing that is because I want it to sort of pick up some of the I don't know, make it drier, I guess is what I want it to be, so that when I'm stamping the little snow images from the Regal Reindeer, that hopefully when I heat emboss this, it's not going to then stick white embossing powder all over everything. Hopefully it will only stick where I want it to stick, which is on my stamped images. So, all right, so I've got Versamark ink, and I'm just going to stamp these two little, I put both of the snow images on one block, and it's hard for me to see exactly where I'm stamping them. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it everywhere where I think it needs to go, and then we'll heat emboss it. And then if there are any weird spots, any empty spots, then I'll just come back in and we'll stamp it a few more times and do a little more heat embossing. So when I did it originally, this is sort of how I did it, is I just stamped it all over the place where I thought it needed to go. And like I said, then heat embossed it. The other thing is my stamp set got cut from when it was manufactured. It got cut a little strangely. It wasn't centered. So my snow images, if you have this stamp set, you're probably going to find that your snow images are a little bit larger than mine. I ended up chopping mine down because, you know, I just grabbed a pair of heavy-duty scissors and chopped the images down to a little bit smaller size. And trimmed away some of the excess, because when I was stamping my original card, I kept getting halos all over the place. So my hope is that by chopping the stamped images down a little, or the stamps down a little, I'm hoping to avoid that. So we'll see what we get when I put the embossing powder on it. It's always an exciting surprise. So, all right, so I've got white embossing powder from the Basics embossing powders. And again, I can hold on to the bottom here where I don't have any ink, and hopefully don't have any Versamark, and I'm just going to sprinkle it generously over the entire panel. I may need to turn it here a few times to make sure that I get all of the little snowflakes that I stamped covered. And turn it on this side. And again, just dump a bunch of embossing powder on it. See where it sticks. Tap off the excess, and I actually think, I mean, it's not terrible. We'll have to see once I get it actually all embossed, but I think I might have gotten it all. So, all right. So white embossing powder, and I'm going to grab the heat tool. So this is the Stampin' Up! Heat tool. I'll get that out of the way too. I do close up my embossing powder before I start up the heat tool, just because I have shot it all over, dumped it all over my desk before, and it is a huge mess to clean it up. So I've learned to try to remember to put the lid on the heat tool before I actually start up put the lid on the embossing powder before I start up the heat tool. So Stampin' Up's heat tool's got two settings on it. There's level 1 for drying, level 2 for heat embossing. So level 1 is if you are watercoloring or using an ink that takes a little longer to dry, you can use the level 1 setting and it'll dry it a little faster. Level 2 setting is hotter, so it will heat emboss, which we're going to do here in just a second, hopefully. Yep, it looks like I've yacked long enough that it heated it. So hopefully you can see that it's starting to turn kind of shiny and brighter white, and that's when you know that it's done heat embossing. And I do find that when I emboss a whole panel like this, sometimes I have to kind of use the heat tool and run over it a couple of times, because I think I get it all heat embossed, and then there's like one spot that I missed or whatever. So let me turn the paper a little bit here. Try not to scorch my fingers. Come on now. There we go. And like I said, you can tell when it's done heat embossing because it turns kind of a brighter white, particularly the white one, and shiny. When it is not done yet, it'll be a little bit dull and kind of grainy looking, so it should look smooth and shiny when you're done with the heat embossing on it. And we're getting there. It's almost done. I know it's a lot of racket. Sorry. All right. A little bit more, a few more here in the center. It looks like aren't quite done yet. And do one more run around the edge, because that's where I find that I usually find the ones that I haven't heat embossed is along the edges. All right, I think we're good. Oh, thanks so much, Gina. I appreciate that. And thanks, Pam. I'm glad you're liking the card. All right, so I think it looks like we got it mostly covered with snow, probably a little more covered with snow than my original one was, but I think it'll work. So, all right, next thing that I did was I adhered it to the front of a thick basic white card base. On my original one, I did my standard top fold cards, so you'll know how I prefer the top fold cards. If you don't and like the side fold cards, this card base will definitely work on either one of them. Now I got my papers all curled from the heat tool. So, all right, so I'm going to add a little multi-purpose liquid glue all the way around the card front. This is a thick basic white card front. This one is cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4 down the middle. My original card base was cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5.5. So it's basically the same measurements, just turned one way or the other. So, all right, let me make sure we got this stuck on here straight and where I want it to be. And I think I did. I'm just going to give it a good smoosh down here, flip it over, do a good rub on the inside of it to try to make sure that I've got the glue stuck down well. Because again, with the heat embossing, it does kind of curl the papers a little bit, so you may get find a little curling in yours, but it flattens out once you put it on the card front. So it does kind of look a little like a blizzard. Again, that was, I don't know that I was necessarily going for a full-on blizzard look, but that's kind of what it got. So, all right. So I have got some pieces. This is white glimmer paper that I cut from the Real Red and White glimmer paper pack. And we are just going to adhere those to the card front. Now, how I did this was I actually took, these are 4 1/4 wides because I knew they were going to go all the way across the card front. And then I grabbed this long die, and for the first two, I cut it just normal like you would run it through face up on the die. And I tried to slide the die over just a hair on one of the two so that the hills wouldn't line up perfectly exactly right, because I know snow doesn't always line up perfectly, in hills and whatever. And then on the last one, I actually flipped the glimmer paper face down and I die cut it that way so that it gave me a hill on the other side. And you can't tell from the front, but it's been cut from the back, if that makes sense. Sometimes you can really tell on dies. This one I didn't feel like it could, so I let it go. I thought it looked just fine being cut the way that it was. So, all right, so let's stick these down. I'm going to grab, this one's a little bit taller, so I'll start with that one. I'm going to grab some Stampin' Seal. The one on the back, I can put Stampin' Seal kind of anywhere that I want it to go on it. And I want to sort of make sure I get it about the same height as my original one, so I think I got it there. All right, so we're going to stick that to the card front. And then the second one that I'm going to put down here, I am going to only put it along the edges, put Stampin' Seal along the edges and along the bottom of it, because when I stamp and die cut my tree, I want to be able to kind of tuck the tree in between the layers. Now, I could probably put the tree on first, but I don't know. This is how I did it when I made it originally. So I just figured that I'd remake it the same way in hopes that I didn't mess anything up. All right, so Stampin' Seal, mostly along the bottom and the edges. Gonna be putting that one, I think we'll go about right there with it. And then my final one, I'm gonna be putting down here on the bottom. And again, the main thing I wanna make sure that I've got is just make sure the whole card, the white part that is not glimmery, is covered up on the bottom. So I'm gonna put, I can't drive my Stampin' Seal all sorts of crazy. So put quite a bit of Stampin' Seal on that bottom one. Line it up here along the bottom of the card base, maybe. There we go. And then stick it down. So we've got our 3 layers of snow stuck down on the card front. All right. Next thing we're gonna do is a little tiny bit of stamping, actually not very much for the card front. I have got the tree image from the Regal Reindeer stamp set and Evening Evergreen ink. Just going to ink up the image here and stamp it on basic white cardstock. And I thought for a little bit about coloring this or trying to do, I don't know, make it, I thought about actually heat embossing it on cardstock, on green cardstock, and then I went, if I want it to look like it's snow and there's snow hanging on it, I wanted to have at least some of the white showing through. So I didn't want to have it be all green because I thought that might look a little weird since I was trying to create like a, snowy landscape. I thought it might look odd if the tree was all green in the middle of a snowy landscape. So again, if you like it better with the green, you can certainly do that. But this is how I did it. So, Starry Sky ink, and I've got the Peace on Earth sentiment from the Regal Reindeer stamp set. And I'm also just going to stamp that right up here. And then I will plan to die cut both of these at the same time. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed. So again, I've got my Stylish Shapes dies, and I'm going to use the third largest of the circle dies to cut that. And then I've got my coordinating tree die here from the reindeer dies, and I'm going to take that and we will die cut the little set of trees. So I'm going to be off screen for a second, die cutting stuff over here on my die cutting machine. So I'll be back in 1 second. Hopefully you're having a great Tuesday. We are supposed to be kind of warm, like in the 80s here for today and tomorrow. And then we're going to be in the 60s all of a sudden for highs and 40s for lows. So it's like fall is here kind of overnight. So, which I don't mind at all because I much prefer the 60s to the 80s because, you know, I get hot. So, all right, so I got my die cut trees and my die cut sentiment. And then I'm thinking I'm going to grab just, whoops, that would help if I didn't have the cap on it, Stampin' Seal. And you can also use glue dots or liquid glue, whatever you prefer. So, hey, Linda, glad you're here. And 60s right now, ooh, I bet that is a little chilly. Like I said, we're not supposed to get that until Thursday, I think it is, when we're supposed to get a little cooler overnight. So, all right, so just used a little Stampin' Seal to put my trees on. And again, I wanted the kind of the lighter, kind of glowy look behind it. So stick that down right there. And then I have got a little bit of the Starry Sky metallic woven ribbon. This is the 1/8 inch wide stuff. And I'm gonna do a little Stampin' Seal here up in the upper left, I guess that would be. I just made it about, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch-ish long. And then I'm going to take my woven ribbon and I'm just going to make it loop, kind of a wide Z with it. It's kind of a loopy Z, if that makes sense. And stick it down here. The only thing I want to do is make sure that I have it wide enough that it's going to peek out around the sentiment because I want a little sparkle around the sentiment. And we'll do the final little section of the Z here. And nobody's going to see the gluey, icky part on, on your card front, so no worries there. It'll all be hidden by your sentiment, so nobody will even know that you have the glob of adhesive there. Then I'm going to grab, hey, no worries at all, Ruth Ann. So I'm going to grab a couple of Stampin'. These are my half Stampin' dimensionals. Again, you can, if you prefer whole ones, you can certainly use whole ones, but I prefer the half ones. And I'm actually sticking them on either side of the ribbon because I want to make sure, for two reasons. The first one is I want to make sure that my sentiment is securely adhered to my card front. Sometimes if you just stick things to the ribbon and the ribbon gets a little squirrely and undone, then your sentiment's kind of flapping in the breeze and you don't necessarily want that. And the other reason is it helps a little bit. You don't get as many weird little lumps and things in your sentiment if you put the adhesive down first and then place your sentiment over the top of it. Then you know that you're not going to end up with it in the wrong place and end up with it stuck half up on the ribbon and anyway, looking all sorts of crazy. All right. So the last thing that I added on the card front is just a little rhinestone jewel, and I stuck that right over here next to this sentiment. And that's it. So card front is done. Again, like I said, the worst part, well, worst part, not even worst part. The hardest part is just the blending, and it isn't even hard. It's just a matter of that it takes a minute because you have to kind of swirl the ink on, and you don't want to end up with globs of ink, so you have to go a little lighter handed with lots of layers. So I know no ribbon scissors, but see, you can't even tell. So I didn't have to hack it this time. So, all right. On the inside of the card, I kept it pretty simple, and I've got basic white cardstock, and this is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to grab the Starry Sky ink and then the inside sentiment for the card from the Regal Reindeer stamp set. And I'm going to stamp that hopefully fairly centered and straight. If I get neither of those, then we can always restamp it. All right, looks like it's reasonably straight and fairly centered. And then I'm going to grab the Evening Evergreen ink and the trees, and we're just going to stamp those down in the corner. And it's a good stamp set, Jackie. You're going to like it. And I'm not going to say that you should get it. I'll just say you're going to like it because I know that you'll get it. So, all right, going to stamp the trees down here in the corner. in Evening Evergreen, and that's all there is for the inside of the card. So all the details for this card are going to be posted on my blog tomorrow, which is stampwithamyk.com, and I will come back in and link up the blog post directly in the description of the video, so you'll be able to easily find it tomorrow. And also when I share this out on YouTube, I'll make sure that I have the blog post linked up in my YouTube post as well, so you can find the details. Cardstock cuts, all the products used, all that good stuff will be out on my blog tomorrow. So, all right. The reason I did this a little bit backwards and put the adhesive on the card base is, again, just because these are the darker colors, and sometimes I make a mess with them because they don't seem to dry quite as quickly as some of the lighter colors do. So I'm just trying to avoid sticking my fat fingers on it and smearing it. Is really that's why I did it the way I did it. So I'm just going to try to stick it on here without making a mess. All right, and that's it for the inside of the card. So I'm going to fold it in half and do a little crease here with the bone folder gently over the embossed area, so hopefully I don't smash any of that up and ruin it. But that's it for the card. So this is the card I made ahead of time. This is the card we made here today. I don't know. Like I said, I think they turned out fairly similarly. This one may be a little bit lighter, more snow, a little bit lighter. This one's probably less snow and a little darker. But again, just gives you a little different look, and hopefully you like it. So definitely get this bundle if you don't have it. Again, it's called Regal Reindeer, and it's got a great set of dies, great set of stamps, wonderful sentiments. And if you aren't into the reindeer, you can always just use the tree like I did on here. So if you don't love the reindeer, the tree is awesome. So, all right, that's all that I had for you today. So thanks so much for joining. I appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. I will plan to be live around 2 o'clock Eastern time on Friday on my YouTube channel, and then 2 o'clock Eastern time back here next week, Tuesday, on my Facebook page live as well. So again, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. Look for all the details on my blog tomorrow. Don't forget to check the weekly deals tomorrow afternoon. And I think that's all. All right. Have a good day. Chat soon.